So guys, I just got out of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and I have one thought leaving the theater. Somebody cut their phone lines. Can we stop calling the Ghostbusters? Enough's enough. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today we're getting into all of my spoiler-free thoughts for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Huge thank you to Sony Pictures for giving me the chance to watch this in theaters. It was actually at an AMC IMAX, so did it make a difference? Not really, but I do have some thoughts about this movie that clocks in at almost 2 hours, which is one of the things I love about the film. And the movie, of course, releases this weekend on March 22nd. So after you hear all of my positives, because there are some positives, and most of my negatives, if it is your first time here at the channel and you haven't already done it, hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what you guys think about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire when you see it. And if you like this review, just give it a like, because there's more reviews coming, guys. A lot of movies are hitting theaters this month and throughout the rest of the year, so I can't wait to cover all of that right here on the channel for you. So in case you're unfamiliar with Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, it's a sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife from 2021, and the premise of the movie is pretty basic for the most part. The Spengler family returns to where it all started, the iconic New York City firehouse, and they team up with the original Ghostbusters. Surprise? I'm not surprised. And they've developed a top secret research lab to take busting ghosts to the next level. But when the discovery of an ancient artifact unleashes an army of ghosts that cast a death chill upon the city, Ghostbusters must join their forces together to protect their home and save the world from a second ice age. Not gonna lie, that sounds like a rompy adventure, and I was going into the movie sort of confident. And of course, preface for this review, I didn't like Ghostbusters Afterlife. I thought it was just nostalgia bait, and I was hoping, I should say, that this was not going to be that. Boy, was I disappointed and let down. But alrighty, so the movie itself, again, before we get into my positives, because I want to start on an optimistic note, it's directed by Gil Kenan, so it's not directed by Jason Reitman, and he wrote Ghostbusters Afterlife. So, yeah, caution flag was raised, but the cast itself is pretty stacked in a way. It's definitely an ensemble. There's a lot of actors in this movie and quite a bit of characters for you to sort of digest and chew on. Oh, no, sorry, I said that line for the green ghost, the one that chews and eats everything. So, Mckenna Grace is back, Carrie Coon, Finn Wolfhard, Paul Rudd, Bill Murray, so many of the OGs and the new Gs. So yeah, the cast itself is not going to be unfamiliar if you did watch Ghostbusters Afterlife. So okay, now that the foundation is set, let's get into my positives, because even though, as you can probably tell, I'm not a big fan of this film at all, the movie does have some positives, right? So the VFX right off the top, wow, it's really impressive. The team, they're so good at what they do about bringing these ghosts into New York City. Nothing really felt jarring or out of place. Maybe there were one or two instances where I really noticed the CGI being a little shoddy, but for the most part, the CGI looks really good. The VFX work for all of the ghosts are awesome. I will say there were moments where you see humans as ghosts, and it didn't look bad at all. I was actually almost waiting for it to trip up, and it never did. So the VFX work is really solid. I actually thought the opening act of the movie sort of sets a good stage for the rest of the film. This is why I was hopeful, guys. So the first 30 minutes of this movie involves the Spengler family and, of course, Gary going out and trying to capture a sewer ghost, and it was a really cool action sequence. I really felt like the chemistry was there. They were gelling. The dialogue was snappy. It felt good. Unfortunately, of course, the rest of the movie didn't follow suit, but that opening act was impressive. And y'all, listen, there were moments I laughed, okay? I laughed in this movie. There aren't many of those moments, but when I did laugh, it involved these actors. Kumail Nanjiani, he does a really good job, possibly the best job in the movie, to be honest. Paul Rudd as Gary, even, my goodness, I felt that, what's his name? is it Logan Kim, I believe his name is, as podcast, does a really good job in this movie. And objectively, I have to say, there are going to be moments of nostalgia for fans, and they'll appreciate it in this movie. I heard laughter, I heard some people clapping in some moments when the OGs returned, like Annie Potts, and of course Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson. Ernie being the best of the bunch in my opinion. He really fit, and then Dan Aykroyd. But I did think that the OGs, with the material they were given, did a decent enough job, I want to say, to capture the allure of the original Ghostbusters for fans who were looking for that in this movie. Now, here's where I have my issues. They begin right here, you guys, with this movie. So let's dive into the negatives. Listen, I enjoyed the original Ghostbusters movies, right? Do I love them and revere them like others? I do not. But this new iteration of Ghostbusters, it feels like it's so trapped trying to bait you with nostalgia and make you remember and reminisce on the good times. Like, we get it. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Annie Potts, Ernie Hudson, they did their thing. But the film can never get out of this weird area where they're trying to introduce you to a new generation of Ghostbusters. They're trying to give you actors that, okay, yeah, we're gonna push them forward. They're the new proton busting ghost hunters of this era, but they can never get there because they're so stuck on trying to make you fall in love again with the OGs, and oh my gosh, I remember this. And of course, going back in your mind and thinking of the first time you saw Ghostbusters, they introduce this new era, but they never let them spread their wings and fly. And that's a fault of the writing and directing, to be honest. Why are we continuing to just give audiences this moment where I guess we're supposed to ooh and ah? Like, there's predictable moments in this movie with our old cast where they turn the camera over and it's like, oh my gosh, who's this person's back of their head? Who is it? And then they turn around and boom, it's Bill Murray, or boom, it's Dan Aykroyd. Like, we get it. You know, we know they exist in this universe. Why are we continuing to give them so much of the spotlight? I mean, Celeste O'Connor, for goodness sakes, a good actress, hardly gets any material to play with, and when she does get the material, it's awful. So what are we doing here? Why are we continuing to focus on the old? And this is supposed to, on the surface, give us the new era of Ghostbusters. Just enough is enough. Stop. We don't need the old ones anymore. I'm sorry. So outside of the overt nostalgia bait, there are also instances where this movie goes through the mud and you just don't really find yourself too interested in the plot. And that's really the entirety of the second act, which felt like it took forever to get through. I don't understand necessarily why they presented a half-baked coming-of-age subplot with McKenna Grace's character, where Phoebe is interacting with this ghost, right? And I won't say anything more than that, but she feels like she is looking for her place in the world. She's in her formative years, and she's trying to figure out what she's going to do with her life, right? She's 15, she's rebelling, she wants to be a Ghostbuster, but she can't, and there are instances where I thought, okay, they're gonna dive into this head first. But when they try to give us even a sliver of a coming-of-age story with her, not only do they focus on it and not execute well, but they just spend far too much time with her character that the others get left in the dust. There was a whole section of this movie where Finn Wolfhard just disappears off the face of the planet. And I'm like, did he go and secretly start filming Stranger Things? What's going on here? Celeste O'Connor introduced and washed away again. It feels like a lot of these actors maybe did 2 or 3 days of filming on set and left. I don't necessarily understand why you would introduce a coming-of-age subplot and then it not be refined or actually focused on enough. In my opinion, they didn't do anything different with that, and it was a shame because McKenna Grace is a good actor. Again, I just don't think that the material she was given, she wasn't directed well. There's just not enough there to chew on. And when it comes to the writing outside of the story, the humor, ooh, it is rough, you guys. That I felt like the humor wasn't hitting after that first act. It just felt like so many jokes were low-hanging fruit. They tried to write jokes for Gen Zers and Gen Alpha, and it felt very much like a dad or a mom saying, well, this is what the kids are saying nowadays, so isn't it funny? What do you think, Jack? Like, no, it's not funny. It felt forced, and there were very cringy sexual innuendos in this movie. You know, I didn't laugh. I didn't think that, you know, Celeste O'Connor talking about a certain dungeon, or Patton Oswalt talking about stuff. I don't even want to really get into it because it is kind of gross. It just didn't work for me, and I don't think the whole joke about like busting Ghost, when you see it you'll know, is very funny either. It just doesn't work for me. I do think that the movie was at its best when they sort of let them riff and do their own thing. Like Paul Rudd, you can tell when he was improvising, and it was really funny. I really thought you had Logan Kim did a good job at, you know, capturing that childlike humor, and it worked for me. But other than that, the movie itself just fell pretty flat in the humor department. And while I don't think an hour and 55-minute movie is necessarily long, this movie felt like every minute of a nearly 2-hour runtime. The pacing just gets a little jumbled as it sort of falls face first into the third act. You build up to this crazy villain, and then when you get there, it feels like it's gone in 10 minutes. I don't know what we're doing here. I mean, I get that they wanted to focus a lot on the OGs, and I get that they wanted to try and build up this new cast, but it's doing too much with not enough efficiency. There's not enough of a success rate with these characters. Like, you're introducing all these characters, and for what? Like, why not just do less? Because sometimes less is more. And when we get to that final act, when we get to the climax of the movie, it's done in like 10 minutes. It just comes and goes so fast. So I don't know why they thought it would be such a good idea to spend all of that time with, for example, Phoebe's coming of age story, if it wasn't going to amount to much of anything. And eventually the movie gets into this predictable trope that you just start to understand, oh, okay, so it's just going to pick this trope, it's going to pick that trope, and you're going to go with that stereotype. And yeah, the movie gets to a point where I was seeing things coming from a mile away. And listen, I'm not coming into a Ghostbusters movie looking for a layered film. However, can you at least be a little clever? So overall, you guys, did I hate Ghostbusters Frozen Empire? No, hate is a strong word. But do I feel like this movie is just as forgettable as Ghostbusters Afterlife? I do. And honestly, I was hoping for a better time than with 2021's Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now, we get into Frozen Empire, and it just feels like they're doing a lot of the same. It's still using nostalgia as bait for audiences. It's got poorly underdeveloped characters. You have a bad attempt at a coming-of-age story, and the humor continues to fall flat while the actual story structure is just on shaky foundation. I really wish that this movie was more enjoyable. I wish I would come away entertained, but it just felt like they were going through the motions. This was a very by-the-numbers approach to making a sequel. It doesn't do anything new. It doesn't do anything inventive. The VFX is really good, and sometimes, yes, the comedic timing among our actors is excellent, like with Paul Rudd, Kumail Nanjiani, Logan Kim, but for everyone else, I just wish they were given better material, because it's not the actors or actresses that are at fault. It's the writing. It's the directing. It just falls incredibly short of the mark, and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is just still on ice, you guys, because that thing is just, it's not a good film. So I would probably give it like a 2 or 2.5 out of 5. I'm very cold on this movie. Again, I do think that it could have been a lot better, but unfortunately, I'm at the point now where I believe they should just stop making these Ghostbusters movies. Enough is enough. I wouldn't be surprised if they make another one, you know, for another new trilogy, but it's time to just call it quits with the Ghostbusters. So there you have it, you guys. That's my real review of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I really wish I loved it more, but I want to know what you guys have to say about it, so get loud down below in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed this review, hit that big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell for more reviews just like this, and I can't wait to dive into the rest of this movie year. It's going to be a lot of fun, and well, I don't know, is my phone ringing? It's probably the Ghostbusters calling me to chastise me about this review. We'll find out. Alrighty, y'all. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.